We are going to discuss today what is a path, what is a need for a path, and what is pathless path. First and foremost, what is the need for a path? Most often, spiritual aspirants are very excited when they encounter a higher possibility that they have a teacher, they have a teaching, and they're excited by the possibility that they could follow a path. Often, the first sign is confusion. What to choose, how to choose, why to choose. It's very difficult for at the outset to choose a path. It often happens to us as an inspiration that we choose a path that is close to our ideals, belief systems, traditions, upbringing, culture. And so we are at comfort level to something which is very familiar in our memory, something which is familiar in our cellular way of operating. So there is a reference library within us, which is at least guiding us at that point and saying, what did you do in past lifetimes? So we often choose paths which are very close to what is our past. So we continue from where we left. In most circumstances, we would often choose path which is a continuum, which is closer to our previous journeys. It also is also a continuation from our previous understanding. So rarely does it happen that we choose something which is way off from our prior understanding. So, what is a path then? Most often, we are coming to clarity only after several deviations in our journey. Most often, these deviations happen because we are also confused. What to choose, whom to choose, where do we operate from. So, when we encounter these confusions, that means we are making an effort. And when we make an effort, eventually, by an experiential process, we are guided to access what is possible. Somewhere deep down inside, a path reveals to itself, reveals to the aspirant what is possible in the journey. So, what happens when we are just a philosopher? We are confused by various idealisms. These ideologies, which bring us to a certain level of understanding, but does not have the firepower to guide us to an experience. So, these confusions often mislead us, and we often remain lethargic, we remain undecided, we are not sure whether it will really going to help us to attain some experience or attain certain objectives and goals. So this is the fallback of a philosophy. So if you have to choose something which can give you results, and most often people do it as a target or as a threshold that has to be crossed. So, what would you choose to help you to come to a state of understanding of this journey? So, this begins the process of a certain level of understanding which is put in to a path. So, that is very close to us, something that is close to us. So, what are we in when we choose a path? Are we just an explorer? Are we just a curious listener? Are you somebody who is a avid and powerful, I would say, an adventurer who is ready to face the the depths and the heights of the path? So somewhere deep down inside, we are very calibrated enough to a practice, and that decides the levels of the journey that we are operating and the paths that we choose. So when we choose a path, eventually we are also guided by a teacher or a teaching. So that also is very important part of our learning. Whom do we connect to? Whom do we talk to? Whom do we listen to? So there is a deeper calling which is inspiring enough for us to follow. Eventually, when the click happens inside, there is something magical. The click is very powerful part of our remembrance. When the click happens, you feel a sense of homecoming, and that homecoming is crucial part of the path work because you feel that every single breath is taking you closer, every single thought is taking you closer, and it is undeterred, undisturbed. Then you know that everything has clicked into alignment, and you have sense of deep longing, a deep connection, a deep sense of homecoming, and that is so intense that there is no way that you can step out of it. When you reach an analogy where you are at the base camp of a mountain, just visualize it. And you look up and say, yes, I want to be at the peak of this mountain. What happens? You find many people at the base camp. They're all very excited and they keep looking at the peak with admiration, with a lot of hope. But only a few of them commit to climbing. So it's important to be in the company of beings who are supremely indomitable in their spirit to take the path work. Otherwise, we end up being loners, and very few beings manage to be able to reach the top on their own without the company of their, I would call them Guru Bai, or somebody who is a spiritual brother or sister who is part of a buddy group who can join hands and be with you on the path. So, most often than not, many people slip. This is the salient feature of most spiritual journeys, that there is a chance, a higher chance of failure. And what happens? Why does this failure happen? We have expectations for things to happen in a very specific way or a very thrilling way, in a very fantastic way. And if it doesn't happen in that way, we are often disappointed. And we are wanting it to happen in a very desirable way. And when we have ideals, and when these ideals don't happen in the way it was meant to be, we're often disturbed by smallest of reasons. We find excuses because wherever there is an effort, people want to shy away from it. This is my personal observation that I notice that wherever there is less effort involved, people throng at it. People, you can see a lot of more people hanging at satsangs, bhajans, kirtans, because there is not much to do. You spend an hour singing the glory of the divine, you go back, you have your food. There is not much of involvement in the action. But wherever there is an action, the path is often shaky because we are basically tamasic in nature. We want to rest, we want to slouch, we want to let go. We were basically getting off steam. There is not enough firepower to last. So, what would be the path to choose? The first path to choose is something which is achievable, which is doable, and that's the middle path, not an extreme path which you get burnt out. So, the middle path begins with the understanding known as Anupaya. Anupaya is ability to access the atomic nature of us. We are a soul that is projected this body. So unless we get into the subtle body, we are not able to understand the nuances, the subtleties of the very nature of prana, the very nature of the elemental flow, the very nature of our beingness. So, unless we access that subtleness, we will never have an experience. And without an experience, we are often misled, we are often confused, we slip because there's not much happening inside. So we often get bored, distracted, and deceived by that lack of knowing, and the ignorance begins to rule us, and we often slip. So, Anupaya is the important aspect of the journey to invest in awareness, and that begins with the breath. Unless the breath channels open, the Ida and Pingala open, the balance does not happen, Sushumna Nadi does not awaken, and that Sushumna Dwara, the opening of the gateway does not open, we will never have a spinal experience, and the subtle spine is left unattended. And that is the sole reason why most people don't experience beyond a certain point. The main threshold, if you're not on the highway, you would always be on the slip route, on the service lane. You will never reach your destination. You would slip, and somewhere 1 degree of separation is enough, 1 degree of deviation is enough. You would spend hovering around many lifetimes without having a proper guidance. And most people are happy just spinning around. This is my observation, that most people choose, okay, it's easy to fall into a very simple understanding between journey and destination. Most people enjoy the concept of just journeying, and it's been very, I think, popular way of looking at it. There's nothing in the destination, all it's all about journey. So if you would choose journey, then you would be viciously spinning in the spiraling cycle. Then it doesn't matter where you are. You would take different births in different nations, different cultures, different traditions. You enjoy the beauty of this planet Earth in its soaking experiences, and it goes on and on until you want to crack open the real knowing. And that's when you have had enough, you're mature enough to understand, and the soul awareness kicks in and it brings you back to Anupaya. And then we realize that there is a matrix energy passing through us, a grid of energy passing through us. Then the Shakti is inevitable. You have to experience Shakti. Those, we cannot bypass it. You could feel good about yourself for some time, but it has not enabled you to know the real picture. So that's when Shakti Paya happens. That means ability for us to be on the path of the creative intelligence that is gathered as Kundalini, which is spectacularly flowing in the spine and rising through you and realigning you back to the source through the pillar of light. It's inevitable. Whether whichever culture you belong to, whichever path you belong to, it's inevitable that this design cannot be different for everybody. We may be different in our realities, we may be different in our understandings, belief systems, path work. Inevitably, the design follows its original nature, which is the Kundalini has to some way, at some point in our life, has to be awakened enough for us to access this. So the path work becomes very, very clear. Who would like to waste their time spinning around the service lanes? They would like to take the main highway, and the path becomes obvious that the Kundalini path is the fastest possible route to the realization, to the awakening, to the knowingness. So Shakti Paya becomes inevitable. And when Shakti rises, where is it going? The rivers are joining, conjoining, confluence happens. Eventually, it accesses the magnetic power head known as Sadashiva. And that journey of the path taken through the Sushumna Nadi eventually ends here, and then it chooses its various frequency dimensions to access the higher domains of light, eventually gets sucked into the magnetic power head, and that is the Shambhava Paya, the path of the Shiva. Shiva doesn't mean a Hindu god with a Trishula standing there on top of Mount Kailasa. It is the powerful, purest, most magnetic. So it's the ability for us to access that Shambhava Paya which enables us to know the real picture. And that picture, when it happens to you, you're following a form, and yet you have ability to be formless. You are following a path. It is so subtle that there are no more rules, and it's a free-spirited state which inspires you continuously to be free, open, and the unity consciousness prevails. And that's when you see the unity in everything, and then you become pathless. Then the supreme acceptance takes over, supreme flow takes over, and you're on the knowingness, and the pathless path reveals to itself. And the teaching happens through the universe. You'll find teachers everywhere. The universe teaches through you. So the teacher, teaching, path, direction, attraction, magnetism, everything merges, and the whole universe is in within you. Teaching is passing through you, everything is revealed through you, and the path becomes complete in itself. And this journey, the path, is known as Paripurnata. So eventually we have to be more and more complete, and Paripurnata reveals to itself stage by stage through elevation, through ascension.